The scent of magnolias, sweet and heavy, hung in the Charleston air as I walked into the bridal boutique. It was a Saturday, bustling with young women lost in a dream of lace and satin. I had an appointment with Caleb Monroe, the city's most sought-after wedding planner. My son, Ethan, and his fiancée, Olivia, were finally tying the knot, and I, Caroline Montgomery, was ready to make their day unforgettable. Ethan was my world, raised him alone after his father passed, pouring every ounce of love, every hard-earned penny, into his future. Seeing him happy, seeing him find love, was my greatest reward. For this wedding, I'd spared no expense. A deposit for the historic Rutledge house, an antebellum mansion with sprawling gardens and crystal chandeliers, had already been paid, a hefty sum of $30,000. It was to be a grand affair, uniting our old Southern family, the Montgomerys, with Olivia's more understated, but equally respected, Northern relatives. Caleb, a man with impeccable taste and an even more impeccable suit, greeted me warmly. We were sifting through floral arrangements when my phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and a warmth spread through me. "Darling, just picking out the dahlias for your big day," I chirped, imagining his excited response. Instead, a hesitant pause. "Hey, Mom," he began, his voice strangely flat. Are you busy?" "Never too busy for you, sweet pea," I replied, my smile unwavering. "What's up?" Another pause, heavier this time. "About the wedding, Mom. Olivia's been talking. She wants something smaller, more intimate." My hand, holding a swatch of ivory silk, stilled. "Smaller. But the Rutledge house is booked, darling. And our family, all the aunts and uncles and cousins, they're so excited." "I know, Mom," he rushed on, "but Olivia feels it'll be simpler. Less complicated. We'll keep the wedding, just her family." The words landed like a physical blow. "Just her family," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. My breath hitched. My sisters, who had nurtured Ethan since he was a babe. My cousins, who had driven cross-country for his graduations. Our church community, who had prayed for him through every childhood illness. Erased. Yes, Ethan's voice softened, apologetic. "She feels it's really their call, since her parents are covering the caterer, the band, everything else. So, could you just send the check, Mom? We'll handle the rest." I ended the call, the phone feeling like a stone in my hand. The $30,000 deposit for the Rutledge house, paid with such joy, now felt like a noose around my neck. "Caleb," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was hammering, "please freeze all vendor contracts immediately. No caterer, no florist, no invitations. Nothing moves forward until I say so." Caleb, ever the professional, simply nodded. "Understood, Mrs. Montgomery." Later that evening, sitting on my porch swing, the familiar creak of comfort against the turmoil in my soul, I stared at the checkbook. The memory of Olivia's dismissive tone, "Eric's just lucky, really. Marrying into a family that can give him this," echoed in my ears. Lucky, as if my son, my flesh and blood, was a stray they had taken in. But I was a Montgomery. And Montgomery women do not break. They bend, they strategize, and they stand firm. I remembered Kayla's casual remark during our last meeting, "Of course, Mrs. Montgomery, since you paid the deposit, the contract is actually in your name." My name, my power. The next morning, I called my sisters. "Keep the date free," I told them, a new resolve hardening my voice. "There may be a wedding yet. And when there is, I want my family ready." Their loyal support, their unwavering love, flowed through the phone lines, a balm to my wounded spirit. I pictured Ethan, in my mind, the boy I had raised, and the man he had become. He was caught between two worlds, and it was time he understood the true value of his heritage. I wouldn't fight with anger, but with dignity. With the quiet strength of a Southern woman who knew the true meaning of family. The game, I realized, was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The Rutledge house, with its grand white columns and blooming magnolias, would indeed host a wedding. But it would be a wedding that honored both love and loyalty. And I, Caroline Montgomery, would ensure it. The evening of the reconciliation dinner was set at a discreet, upscale restaurant downtown. I arrived precisely on time, dressed in a timeless navy dress, my grandmother's pearls gleaming at my throat. I met Olivia's cool gaze with a polite, unyielding smile. Her mother, Mrs. Albright, exuded an air of effortless superiority. Ethan, caught in the middle, looked like a deer in headlights. Over impeccable crab cakes and crisp white wine, Mrs. Albright began, "Vivian, darling, we simply adore Charleston. So charming, but I do think a smaller, more exclusive affair is best. You know, for taste." "Taste," I replied, my voice as smooth as aged bourbon, as often in the eye of the beholder, "Brianna. My family, with their laughter and their stories, bring a richness that money simply cannot buy. We Montgomerys have a heritage as deep as the roots of those old oaks outside." Olivia, emboldened by her mother's presence, chimed in, "Well, since my parents are paying for everything else, it really is our decision. Ethan's just lucky, truly, to be joining a family that can provide such an exquisite event." That word again, lucky. It grated on my soul. Lucky, I countered gently, is being surrounded by people who love you unconditionally, regardless of their bank account. My son, my dearest Ethan, has always been rich in that kind of love. I turned to Ethan, who sat silently, picking at his food. "Isn't that right, darling?" He looked up, startled, then slowly nodded. "Yes, Mom." It was a small victory, but a seed planted. The dinner ended with a strained cordiality. I left knowing they underestimated me, mistaking my southern grace for weakness. But I also knew the power of that signed contract. Days later, the truth unfurled itself in a dramatic fashion. Ethan had been out with a friend, unwinding at a bustling downtown bar, when Olivia and her bridesmaids swept in. Unaware of Ethan's presence, Olivia's voice, carried by the cheerful din, cut through the air. "It'll be perfect," she declared to her friends. "Ethan's family won't be there. No embarrassing country bumpkins spoiling the photos. Just us. Just class." The silence in Ethan's heart must have been deafening. He saw, for the first time, the true face of his fiancée, manipulative, dismissive, and utterly devoid of respect for his roots. That night, he called me, his voice broken, filled with a raw hurt I had rarely heard. "Mom," he choked out, "I heard what she said. I can't believe it." "I can," I replied softly, "because I already did." The next morning, at Caleb's office, the air crackled with a different kind of tension. Olivia and Mrs. Albright were already there, a cold fury emanating from them. Ethan stood by the window, his shoulders no longer hunched, but squared. "Vivian," Mrs. Albright began, her voice tight, "I trust you've come to your senses. We must finalize the arrangements." I smiled, a genuine, unyielding smile this time. "Indeed, Brianna, and I have come to a very simple conclusion. Without me, there is no venue, no vendors, no wedding." Olivia gasped, her face turning crimson. "You can't. You wouldn't dare." "Oh, but I would, dear," I stated calmly. "And I have. My 30-plus relatives, whom you so carelessly dismissed as country bumpkins, are just as important as your class. And since the contract for the Rutledge House and all its splendid offerings bears my name, and my name alone, nothing moves forward without my express approval." Mrs. Albright's jaw tightened. "This is preposterous." "Respect," I interjected, looking directly at Ethan, "is not something purchased, Brianna. It is given freely, or not at all. And it seems my family, our family, has been denied that respect." Then, Ethan spoke. His voice, clear and resonant, filled the room. "Mom's right. This wedding is supposed to be about two families. Not one. I've let things slide, kept quiet, but no more. If her family isn't included, then this wedding isn't what it's meant to be." Olivia stared at him, betrayed. Mrs. Albright was speechless. They knew their polished society wedding, without the Rutledge House, was a farce. Finally, Olivia bit out, "Fine. 50-50, but only because we don't have time to start over." I nodded, a small, triumphant incline of my head. "That will do. And one more thing, Lauren. At the reception, there will be a toast, acknowledging both families openly, equally. That condition is not negotiable." She glared, but said nothing. She couldn't. I rose, smoothing my skirt. "Thank you for your time. I look forward to celebrating together." Stepping out into the Charleston sun, the sweet air felt like a victory. My son had stood with me. The balance had shifted, and the game, I knew, was mine to finish. The Rutledge House glowed. The lanterns in the garden shimmered, the Spanish moss swayed, and inside, crystal and china gleamed. The room was filled, not with a subtle stiffness, but with a vibrant hum. My Montgomery family, 30 strong, their laughter warm and genuine, mingled with Olivia's relatives. They were here, and that, for me, was victory. Lauren, glittering in her gown, smiled, but her eyes held a new, cautious respect. Brianna, her posture still perfect, engaged in polite conversation, but the veneer of arrogance had cracked. When it was time for toasts, I rose, my silk rustling softly. My dear friends, my beloved family, I began, my voice clear and warm. What a joy it is to see us gathered here tonight, not as two halves but as one whole. Tonight is not only about Ethan and Olivia, but about the Montgomerys and the Albrights, about roots intertwining, about two families choosing to stand together. My gaze swept the room. Now, it is true there was a time when it seemed as though some might be left behind. But love has a way of correcting its path. Love remembers. Love insists on inclusion. And so here we are, every seat filled, every heart accounted for. A ripple of murmurs, then my family's joyful applause. Olivia's family remained stiff, but I saw Brianna's lips tighten. They understood. I raised my glass high. To family, all of it. May this union remind us that wealth fades, beauty changes, but loyalty endures. To Ethan and Olivia, the room echoed with clinking crystal. As I sat down, a deep peace settled over me. Then, Ethan stood. His face was pale, but his voice was unwavering. I want to thank my mother, he said, and the room stilled. She gave me more than life. She gave me values. Tonight is possible because of her. And I want everyone here to know I'm proud. Proud to be her son. Proud to have both families here. Proud to begin this marriage with honesty and balance. He raised his glass to me. In that moment, I saw the man he had truly become, and my heart swelled. Lauren's smile was thin, Brianna's face set, but my family beamed. Their pride, a beacon that filled the room. I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. My dignity was restored, my family's place secure, balance had been reclaimed, and with that, the night was finally, truly, ours. Life, I realized, has a way of testing how much dignity we are willing to defend. Money, appearances, even grand weddings mean nothing if respect and loyalty are not at the foundation. Silence is not always weakness. Sometimes, it is the gathering of strength before speaking the truth. Family bonds should never be negotiated away for convenience. And when they are threatened, we must stand firm, no matter the cost.